Hey guys, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches with another exciting episode for you today. And what are we? Day 4 of quarantine, the great quarantine of 2020. Before we move into the conundrum that we're going to discuss, a very possible scenario that many people are facing right now or soon, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, let's go ahead and do the quick fist watch check. And here it is. Yes, today I am wearing a watch that matches my outfit. And let me just turn it into the sun. That's the only thing about this watch is you've got to find the exact right angle. And when you do that, she comes to life in a magnificent starburst dial beautiful way. But the question, guys, is what are you going to do if you receive the call from the AD right now, today? What are you going to do? Now, I'm going to put the link to a video that I made a couple of weeks ago in the description of this video right here. And when you're done, go ahead and have a look. And that was the video where I made some predictions about what was going to be happening with the Rolex supply line as, world crisis was developing. And what I suggested was that a bunch of watches were going to be diverted. These were watches that were already made, already in the supply line, and that Rolex would be diverting from Asia into Europe and North America. And I felt like all of a sudden the authorized dealers here would at least temporarily pop up with a little bit of extra supply until Rolex could further clamp back down to equalize supply and demand and keep demand high and supply, somewhat lower. And sadly, I not only proved right about most of that, but in fact, it got a little more draconian in that Rolex has actually closed the factory in Switzerland, and it's intended to be closed for a period of 10 days. Whether they will extend that or not, we don't entirely know. A lot of Rolex workers are French, and so, they're not able to cross the border right now. And Switzerland has banned mass meetings, and, they're doing the work from home thing. So, gosh, people who are running the assembly line over there at Rolex cannot do their thing. The watchmakers cannot work from home. But of course, what seems to be happening right now in North America and Europe is that people are unexpectedly getting the call to purchase Rolex steel sports watches that they weren't entirely sure they were going to be offered, or at least not this soon. Now, how long is that going to continue? I don't think very long. I think this is it's a very unique situation. Rolex will adapt. They will cut the supply. In fact, they have to cut the supply because they've had to close the factory. But they will correspondingly cut the supply to equalize demand once things kind of like shake out. Because they're going to want to make some predictions and calculations in terms of what's going to happen in terms of a resurgence. What's going to happen to the economy? Where will Asia and developing markets be? What is North America going to buy? They're going to calculate all that out to the best of their ability. And these are very smart people. And then what they'll do is they'll create demand and not quite enough supply. And you know what that does to prices, guys. It increases prices. But right now we have the perfect storm. What if your authorized dealer calls you and says, hey, I've got a watch for you?
What are you going to do?
So, normally if you got the call to go buy a steel sports watch that you wanted, like, let's say it's something even, interesting and collectible like a Hulk, what's to think about, Now, I myself am not a flipper. James & Sons in Orland Park, Illinois, blatant plug, was good enough to sell me this watch. And this is a keeper. This is a core part of my collection, so it's nothing that I intend to part with. But what about you, right? So what if you got a call right now to go buy this watch at retail? Retail on this watch right now is, call it $9,300. By the time you pay, and that's in the US dollar, and by the time you pay the sales tax on this, you are walking out for an expense of, call it $10,000. Now, if you were a flipper, in theory, I don't know what dealers are offering for this right now. If you know what dealers are offering for the Hulk right now, put it in the comments. I don't care what it is. I'm not taking it. This goes to one of my kids eventually. The point of the matter, oh, look, and notice how well I matched it into the shirt for the purposes of this video. But back to the topic at hand. By the time you walk out of the authorized dealer with this watch, you have spent $10,000. So let's say that a dealer would give you 11, 12. I mean, I'm sure it's down from what it was because I don't think dealers are going to be wanting to stock up really heavy because they're not entirely sure what's going to happen to prices either. If you think different, let me know in the comments. So if you were thinking in terms of making a quick $1,000 or $2,000, okay, you might do it. But what if you're like not the flipper? What if you're like a normal, nice, lovely person like me, and you're just thinking in terms of your own collection? What if you were offered a watch at retail that can be traditionally difficult to get? You're not a flipper, so the question is this the right time to put out the money and add it to your collection? Guys, I got very, very lucky on this watch because this came to me 2 days before Christmas. It's going to be very hard to forget because this was a Christmas present to, for me to myself. So it came on December 23rd, and I didn't have to consider the ramifications of potential recession, worldwide stuff, economic difficulties. I didn't have to take any of that into account. I had the money set aside because I was on the waiting list for this watch for like 8-9 months. And so I figured eventually it would come, and I had done a set aside on the money. Okay, so it wasn't a big deal to me on December 23rd of 2019 to just grab that money when I got the call, and literally that same night, I ran into the authorized dealer there and sat down with Brian, and we made the deal. But now things are a little bit different. I don't mean just for me, but I mean like globally. A whole lot of us are underemployed. I myself right now, I would call myself underemployed in the sense that a lot of my clients, I'm a dog trainer, and spring break is a super busy time for me normally. Why? Because people travel and they think, let me get something done with the dog. And so they put the dog in training right here on my beautiful little farm. But all those people, well, not all of them, but most of those people canceled because they can't travel anywhere. And I think maybe they were thinking in terms of conserving their cash. And, to be fair, when I say they canceled, what they did was they deferred. They all had deposits down and they just deferred. So they'll come in eventually. But what that has done is that has interrupted my own personal income stream. Now, I am a very, very lucky person because by nature I'm a saver. And therefore, I have cash. So like I'm okay. And I'm not complaining. I'm not crying poor. By no means am I panicking. In fact, I feel a whole lot of compassion for people at the much lower end of the economic scale. Retail workers, stores are closed. Bartenders, servers, barbacks, busboys, managers, mid-level managers in companies that are closed. There are a ton of people who are unemployed, underemployed, salespeople whose contracts are in limbo right now, whose sales targets and goals are crashing. Some of you are very lucky. You have a stable situation. You're working from home and you're not going to see a whole lot of disruption, and fantastic, good on you. But there are a ton of people who are going to get hurt by this, even if it's just like a 2-week shutdown. And certainly we hope it doesn't go any longer than that. But I guess here's my question. Theoretically, put yourself in this position, and this is what I want to start a discussion in the comments, and I will participate with you. Please tell me what you think of this. If you got the call right now to purchase a Hulk, and remember, you're not a flipper, you're a keeper. You get the call to purchase a Hulk. You get the call to purchase that steel Submariner, date or no date. You get the call to purchase a two-tone something or another, and something that you've wanted that's a little bit difficult to get. You get the call right now, and your AD gives you 24 hours to think about it. Now you got to go talk to your wife and say, honey, I got to peel $10,000 out of savings because this is the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which it might be. Are you going to do it? And if you do, will she let you? And should she let you? And should you do it? Is this the time to conserve whatever cash you have as a hedge against what's to come? So for example, let's say you just want to be a super savvy investor. Should you save that $10,000, try and figure out where the trough in the market is and then, load in? Should you be buying, emerging markets right now because they've crashed? Should you be investing into the Pacific Rim because it's crashed and, 5 years from now it's going to be triple? I read an article recently which said if you want to double your retirement account in 5 years, invest it all right now in emerging markets because those markets are, tumbling right now. How about you? Are you going to invest it in a Rolex? I will tell you straight up, I am very lucky that this thing did not come in the last 2 days because then I would have had a conundrum. I would have been having to think to myself, should I take that set aside that I had reserved for this Hulk? Should I take it and should I save it in a war chest just in case? And in fact, I'm hopeful one of these days to get a Daytona in steel. What happens if the authorized dealer calls me tomorrow and says, hey, we've got one? Now, between you and me, guys, if that happens, I'm taking it. Because that's sort of what I'm thinking about as maybe one of the crown jewels of the core collection. Hulk, sorry I keep showing this to you. I'm just like utterly fascinated by it in the light. Core collection. And if and when a Daytona comes along, core collection. But what would I do if called upon to spend $13,000 right now on something that I really, really, really wanted? And I could swing it, but I gotta bet. So, here's how I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. I think if you're an optimist, if you're the kind of person who says, listen, I've got cash and I'm very optimistic and I don't think this disruption could last more than a month to 2 months, I'm doing it. So if you're an optimist, glass half full, then go get that Rolex if the AD should call. If you're a doomsday predictor, if you're the kind of guy who's got somewhere in the crawl space, like 200 liters of water and 25 cases of Spam, don't do it because you're going to want to conserve your cash. If you're in that first category, if I were you guys, I would start calling around to authorized dealers right now or contacting them by email. A lot of them are closed, but doing business over the internet. Okay, and then going into the store to meet clients. By and large, most of these companies are small family-owned businesses that have taken years for these guys to develop, and it is tough times for those people. Okay, folks, well, I guess what I'm saying is if my AD calls with a Daytona, I'm on my way. What about you? If there's something that you've been fiending and craving and you're an optimist and you've got the cash, call the authorized dealers. I keep reading in my own comment sections and on Facebook, unexpectedly, people getting the call from the AD or finding hard to find watches at the authorized dealer right now. Why? Because all those watches that were in the pipeline slated to go to Asia have come to North America and have come to Europe. But that's going to change very quickly because the pipeline supply has stopped. So what's feeding through the pipeline right now is cut back here. And what we're getting is the trickle, the spurt at the end of the last production cycle. That may be to your advantage. I hope it is to mine. Either way, I'm very glad that you're with me. Let's do this again soon. Goldberg, peace out.
Paint the sky.